His full name is Joseph James Rogan. Joe was born on August 11, 1967 in New Jersey. He suffers from vitiligo, a condition that causes the loss of skin color in patches. Joe Rogan is the host of the popular podcast The Joe Rogan Experience, but he used to work as the assistant to a private investigator. His father, Joseph, is a former police officer. Joe's parents divorced when he was 5 years old. He mentioned that his father was abusive, so all he remembers about him is domestic violence. The last time he saw his father was when he was 7 years old. Joe averages around 11 million listeners per episode. This is the equivalent to the population of Ireland, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica combined. In terms of viewership, he completely eclipses any other podcast in traditional cable television. There are approximately 1,800 episodes of his podcast. The total duration of all Joe Rogan Experience episodes is around 6,000 hours. To put it into perspective, you would need 250 days to watch all the episodes. He has had over 700 guests on his podcast. Among them, you can find many famous people including Mike Tyson, Edward Snowden, Elon Musk, Miley Cyrus, Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Hart, and many others. Joe Rogan is a skilled hunter. He even appeared on the cover of the popular hunting magazine Peterson's Hunting. Joe is also part of the Eat What You Kill movement, which seeks to move away from factory farming and the cruel treatment of animals raised for food. Joe Rogan announced that the deal he signed with Spotify in 2020 brought him over $100 million. Joe is of 3/4 Italian and 1/4 Irish descent. Joe Rogan began his career as a stand-up comedian. In 1994, he signed an exclusive development deal with Disney and appeared as an actor in several television shows, including Hardball and News Radio. He holds a black belt in Taekwondo and another black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He started practicing it in 1994 when he was nearly 30 years old. Joe Rogan also participated in kickboxing competitions. At one point, Joe got a record for the hardest kick registering 152,000 Franklin units. However, recently, Bellator star Lorenz Larkin recorded 235,875 Franklin units for a strike, setting a new record. Joe likes to go on swings. He attended Newton South High School, which he graduated from in 1985. Joe was part of a Little League baseball team. Once, Joe Rogan faced heavy criticism for making jokes about child sexual assault. He has 3 children. Although Joe always said he wouldn't get married, he eventually married former waitress Jessica Dietzel in 2009. They have 2 daughters, both born in 2008 and 2010. Joe's wife Jessica already had a child from a previous relationship, whom Joe adopted after her biological father died in a car accident. Joe Rogan gained significant popularity by hosting the reality show Fear Factor. In one episode of season 6, Rogan's mockery infuriated one of the participants who attacked him. There are rumors that Joe Rogan's podcast may be broadcast on the radio in-game GTA 6. Rogan began working with the UFC in 1997, starting as a journalist and conducting interviews with fighters. Over time, he also became a commentator. Typically, Rogan doesn't travel outside of the United States for UFC pay-per-views. He is known for his libertarian views. Rogan supports same-sex marriage, gay rights, women's rights, and recreational drug use. Caitlyn Jenner called Joe Rogan a transphobe due to his joke about the Kardashian family making her a transvestite. Joe Rogan has experience in martial arts training. He voiced characters in animated series. His voice can be heard in Family Guy and The Simpsons. He's fascinated by the mysteries of the universe, quantum physics, and the search for extraterrestrial life. Joe Rogan is an avid supporter of psychedelic substances. He is a licensed pilot. Joe enjoys archery. Rogan is against routine infant circumcision, stating that there is a lack of significant scientific evidence to support this practice.
What are you gonna do today, Charlie? I'm thinking about cutting baby dicks and sucking them. What?
In 2007, Rogan released the documentary The Union, The Business Behind Getting High, about the illegal marijuana trade in British Columbia. Joe Rogan has a serious addiction to video games, so he avoids playing them.
And video games are a real problem because they're fucking fun. Well, I have a real problem with them.
Rogan has been a stand-up comedian for over 30 years. His height is 5 feet 8 inches. Initially, he didn't plan to become a comedian and wanted to fully dedicate himself to martial arts. His first comedy performances were in strip clubs and bachelor parties. He participated in the World Series of Poker. Joe was raised as a Catholic and attended a Catholic school in the 1st grade, but has since abandoned religion and identifies as an agnostic.
So I was fucking terrified to get them wrong.
No.
They definitely threatened me.
He is fascinated by an ancient civilization. Perhaps he is just trying to find out who his ancestors were. Joe Rogan is a dog lover. Joe has a golden retriever named Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, is the sweetest dog in the world.
His dog has more than 833,000 followers on Instagram. Joe Rogan declined to invite Andrew Tate to his podcast. He is a supporter of a ketogenic diet. Rogan trained with legendary martial artists including Submission Wrestling World Championships Jean-Jacques Machado and the undefeated Rickson Gracie. Actor Wesley Snipes once approached the UFC to propose a fight between himself and Jean-Claude Van Damme. While officials refused to agree for the star to take on Van Damme, they suggested he fight Joe Rogan instead. Joe was apparently on board and was training for the fight, but it was soon shut down due to Snipes running into problems with the IRS. Rogan advocates for the decriminalization of marijuana. He is also quite skilled at imitating animal sounds. In one of his podcasts, Rogan stated that
The idea that Jewish people are not into money is ridiculous.
Listen.
That's like saying Italians aren't into pizza. It's fucking stupid.
Listen.
Rogan lent his voice and likeness to characters in the video games UFC Undisputed 3 and EA Sports UFC. This is the only place where his haters can punch him. He attended the University of Massachusetts in Boston, but decided it didn't make sense and dropped out. He lived in Boston until the age of 24, then moved to New York. When Rogan tested positive for COVID-19, instead of staying at home and taking prescribed medications, he decided to take a medication used for horses. His podcast is downloaded 190 million times per month. He has been on the air for 10 years. Joe's income from the podcast is $30 million. According to Forbes, Joe Rogan's podcast is the highest paid in the world. Joe Rogan was once gifted custom sneakers based on his tattoos and favorite books. At the age of 14, Rogan practiced karate. He was a 4-time state champion in full-contact kickboxing. He left the sport at the age of 21 because he suffered from frequent headaches and feared more serious injuries. Joe Rogan accused Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson of using steroids. In the mid-90s, Rogan started performing at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. For the next 13 years, he performed at the club for free. In 2010, Rogan accused comedian Dane Cook of stealing his jokes. The value of his 10,980 square foot estate in Austin is $14.4 million. On one of his podcasts, Elon Musk smoked a joint with Joe, after which Tesla's stock fell. This podcast garnered 67 million views and became Joe Rogan's most viewed podcast on YouTube. He spent 20 minutes in an ice bath.
Just makes me feel great. I feel calm and I feel loose and I feel relaxed.
Bernie Sanders appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience in 2019. At the time, Sanders was vying to become the Democratic Party's presidential candidate. He lost to Joe Biden, but still many consider it Joe Rogan's most interesting podcast to date. In January 2020, Rogan spent a month on a carnivore diet, eating only beef, elk, and eggs. As a result, he lost 12 pounds and felt an energy boost, as well as relief from some previous health issues. Rogan is a co-founder of the supplement and fitness company Onnit. Joe Rogan co-hosted The Man Show from 2003 to 2004. He is a relative of 2 former members of the band My Chemical Romance, although he never met them. Spotify removed over 40 episodes of Joe Rogan's podcast due to censorship. Joe Rogan's net worth is at least $100 million. Joe Rogan enjoys cosplay.
It's like
I can't.
I can't do it.